Hello, good evening. My name is John Akinola, and I'm here as a consultant with Respiratory Innovation Wales, and I have been called to come about this project where we'll be collecting data from various public sector institutions, the data of the members of the public, which we are going to use to provide better housing opportunities for the people of this country. So I have been asked to come about this project so that I can be able to explain the importance of the protection of data in this project, because this data is what we are going to use to provide better housing and for a very, very good outcome for both us, the institution, and the people that we are providing the housing for. It is very, very important that data is being protected. And this is done all over the world. Every business, every public sector organization has to protect the data of the people that they are administrating over. Because if this data gets into the wrong hands, it could be used for nefarious purposes. So I have written a booklet, and I hope that you have all received this by now. It's a booklet that explain in detail the importance of data protection, the DPIA, and what to do in case of a breach. And this is what I am here to explain in terms that are as clear as possible. So, what is this booklet supposed to help do? This booklet is supposed to help to understand the importance of data protection. It's supposed to help get familiar with some of the laws that govern data protection in both the UK and the European Union. It helps to be able to know what to do in case of a data breach. It also helps to know the steps that are involved in conducting a DPIA, or even if you need to conduct a DPIA at all. So let's get into it, and let's start with the law. So there are various laws that govern um, the data of people in both the UK and the European Union. And the most famous one, the most talked about one, is the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, that has 99 articles that all govern data protection of the people of the European Union, because they take data protection serious over here. And the UK's version of the GDPR, where the UK kind of refines the GDPR into their own standards and their own context, is the Data Protection Act of 2018. So these two regulations, they they make important the data protection of their citizens. And there are various articles that deal specifically with what we are about to do here. There's Article 35, there's Article 9, there's Article 6, there's Article 10. So various articles deal with various aspects of what we are trying to do. And before we even go into what these articles are trying to talk about, we have to know which kind of data we are collecting, and who controls this data, who administrates this data, and um, if the data that we are collecting is so important, what other steps do we need to take to be able to ascertain that we can protect this particular data that we are collecting. So um, we have to go into data classification, and we have to go into data mapping, because these are the things that are very important in knowing the gravity of what we are about to do. So there are various classes of data. Um, One of the classes that is specifically hammered upon by the GDPR is the So the special category data talks about the kind of sensitive data, the data that you will really not want to get into the wrong hands. So like ethnic background, like religious affiliations, very sensitive kind of data. And so this kind of data have to be protected in an extra way. You have to go extra mile in protecting this kind of data. They are different from this other data that we call the general personal data, or some people also know it as personal identifiable information (PII). So this information, while they need to be protected, do not need the kind of scrutiny in security like the special category data. There is also criminal offense data that shows someone's criminal history, and all of this data need to be protected. And we also have to go into um, data mapping, where you have to know where your data is coming from, how you are collecting the data, if you are getting your data from web forms, or you are getting your data from physical application forms, or you are getting your data from somewhere else, anywhere else. You have to know where you're collecting your data from. You have to know how you are processing this data, how you are storing this data, maybe in a cloud, maybe in a hard disk drive, maybe in your personal storage facility, or maybe you are not even storing the data at all, and you are just processing it immediately and letting go of it. And talking about letting go of it, you have to also know how you are going to delete this, how you are going to delete the information, how you are going to dispose of it properly. It's one of those things that you have to know, you have to identify in our data mapping process. And we also have to identify data ownership. We have to know who the data owner is. And in our situation, the data owner is the person that is legally responsible for protecting the data, which is our organization itself. We are legally responsible for the data of the people that we are collecting. So we are the data owner. There's also the data controller and the data processor. And the data controller is the person or the entity that determines the purpose of the data that is being collected. So let's say the government is the entity that's determining why or what we are going to use the data for. So in this situation, the government then would be the data controller, and the data processor can be an external body or an internal body that uses the data to do something. So if we are going to use the data to provide housing for people, and we need to know who has children so that we can get them closer to schools, and we need to know who has health emergencies so that we can get them better to the hospitals, and we need to know various things, the ones that are Christian or the ones that are Muslim, and all those kind of stuff, so that we can strategically place them in houses in locations that are more convenient for them. So we need to be able to know these things, and then when we use them, we are the data processor. Or maybe in another situation where an organization collects various data and is using it to pay their employees, the payroll provider is going to be the data processor in that situation. So the data processor can vary in various situations. But in our situation, we can also assume that we are the data processor. So in the next chapter, I talk about the data protection impact assessment. And the data protection impact assessment is an assessment that checks how ready an organization is to handle sensitive data of the people that they collect the data from. So, simply put, so DPI is mandated by GDPR in the Article 35. Article 35 of the GDPR mandates the DPI, which is Data Protection Impact Assessment, for organizations in various situations. You need to know when you need to conduct a DPI, because it's not all of the time. So how do we know when we need to conduct a DPIA? There are some situations, about four of them, where you know that you are going to conduct a DPIA. One of them is when there's a lot of sensitive data that is being processed. So in our situation, we can agree that we are going to be processing some pretty sensitive data. So we know that we need the DPI. So one of the situations is when you're conducting sensitive, when you are processing a lot of sensitive data. Another one is when there is a lot of monitoring involved. Let's say you are going to be scouring through CCTV footages and public available footages and stuff like that. So if there is a lot of monitoring involved, um, DPI has to be conducted. Uh, Another one is when there is new technology that has been introduced. Let's say an organization comes out with a technology that does something that we have not seen before, and then a DPI has to be conducted to be able to ascertain that this company knows what they are doing and the data of the people are not at risk as a result of this new technology that they are trying to introduce. And another one is when there is systematic evaluation or profiling going on. So when you profile people, maybe you want to know the people of a certain race so that you can treat them differently, or people of a certain ability or disability so you can treat them differently. When there's some kind of profiling going on, DPI has to be conducted and be able, so that we'll be able to ascertain that this thing that this organization is doing is the right thing. So these are the four criteria that you have to look at and check to see if you fall into one of those categories, and then you will know if you need to conduct a DPIA or not. And we can agree that we will check some boxes in this list of criteria. So we know already that we need to conduct a DPIA. So the next thing you need to know is, how do we conduct this DPIA? There are some steps that we follow in conducting the DPIA. And the first step is identifying the need for the DPIA, which we have already done when we were listing the criteria for knowing when to conduct the DPIA. We already know, when we look at our organization and what we are trying to do, we see the need for a DPIA. Step 2 is to describe the processing activities. So the DPI process has already begun, and we are listing our processing activities. This is where we collect data from. This is how we store it in the first place. This is how we process it. This is how we administer it. This is how we use the data, and this is are the people that will send the data to, maybe a third-party organization. We are sending data back to them, or we are sending data to them for the first time, or we are getting the data back. We store it here. This is our API. This is our server. This is our storage unit. This is how we delete the data. You have to describe your processing activities, and then you have to ascertain that this is necessary. So that's step 3. You have to ascertain necessity for these things, so that you don't bloat your processing activities with stuff that you don't need. You have to keep it to things that are necessary. And then you have to identify and evaluate the risks to your processing activities. Or let's say you are liable to be attacked by malware, you have to identify that, and then you have to assess and mitigate it. Let's say you are liable to natural disasters, you have to assess that, and then you have to mitigate it. And then you have to no, you have to be in contact with your stakeholders, so the staff, let's say new staff, old staff, the management. They have to know that this is what is going on in the organization, this is what we are conducting, and this is what we are trying to do. So you have to be in constant communication with your stakeholders. And then the last step is to document and share your results of the DPIA that you have conducted. So there are two things. The first thing is this DPIA has to be conducted with the let's say, I don't want to use the word collaboration, uh, but you have to carry along somebody called a data protection officer. The data protection officer is an independent person, can be within your organization, or you can source the person from outside the organization. And this person is the person that advises you on the legal aspects of data protection in house. So this person helps you abide by the law, by what the law says concerning data protection. And this is also the person that helps you to conduct this DPIA in a standard manner. And the second thing is the submission of the DPIA findings. And in the UK here, you submit your DPIA findings to the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office. So the Information Commissioner's Office is an independent body that is put in place by the UK for the enforcement of the GDPR. So this body is there to enforce GDPR, and they are also the body that you go to submit your DPIA. So you finish your DPIA, you go to the ICO office, then the ICO checks your DPIA and see if it is okay to go, or if it's lacking in one or two places, and then they let you know the results. So the that is all the steps that you have to take in conducting a DPI. And then if you are good to go, if the IC office says yes, and then your DPI is complete. So in the next chapter, before we go back to some aspects of the law concerning the DPI and other stuff, there are some security best practices that I put in the booklet. And these security best practices, they are kind of technical. They are not really legal or abstract. These are stuff that you can do in real life that helps you to protect the data of the people that have collected the data from the public. So there's multi-factor authentication, there's role-based access, where only people that are allowed into an office can get there. You can use something as simple as a fob, where only people that are authorized to go into certain places have the fob, and then they can just click and then they enter the place. So so that not just anyone can access some certain places in the organization building. Simple stuff like IDS, the intrusion detection system, or the IPS, the intrusion prevention system, or even something as simple as a firewall or data encryption. These are technical stuff that you can implement, that we can implement in the organization, that helps us to protect the data of the public. And all of these things and many more are stuff that are included in the ISO 27001 framework. And ISO 27001 framework is something that organizations use to be able to align their cyber landscape with the world cyber landscape, so to the world standard. So that is one of the most important frameworks out there that organizations use to align themselves with the world standard. So back to the law, there are various the DPIA and some of these security measures are stuff that are mandated by law in some instances. So like the DPI, like we said, was mandated by GDPR in Article 35, and there are some aspects of what we have discussed that have also been mandated by law, like the special category data. Special category data, when you want to collect and process special category data, there's Article 9 of the GDPR that talks about how to process um, the special category data and gives about 10 steps to go through before you can even think about processing special category data. And 5 of those steps are stuff that we have to fulfill in Chapter 1 of the UK DPA. So these laws can be intertwined. It doesn't tell you to refer to the UK DPA, but if you read through it and then you read through the Chapter 1 of the UK DPA, you will see how these things come together and how they work hand in hand. There's also the Chapter 6 or the Article 6, sorry, of the GDPR that talks about legal basis for collecting special category data, for collecting criminal criminal records data. So these laws are stuff that we need to be able to understand, and able to safely process the data of the member of the public and not be found wanting by the by the law. And if, let's say, an organization does not abide the by the law, let's say GDPR, they can be fined by the ICO. The Information Commissioner's Office can fine an organization into the millions of data. I think about up to 20 million or thereabouts, and or or 4% of their annual revenue. Imagine how much that could be. So that's a really big fine, and we cannot afford to make that kind of blunder. So we have to align ourselves by the law. And let's say we abide by the law and we have done everything in our power to be able to safeguard and keep the data of the members of the public. And a breach still occurs because no system is 100% secure. Data breaches happen every day. In fact, there's been a rise in data breaches in the UK, be it phishing attacks or ransomware attacks. There are many kinds of attacks that are happening in the UK cybersecurity landscape. So let's say an attack happens, and what do we do? So the first thing that we have to do is to detect and report the attack. You have to actually find the attack. That's how you know that an attack is happening. You have to find and detect the attack. So let's say um, it's a denial of service attack, and our systems are not running the way they should run. You have to find what is actually happening and you have to report it. That's the first thing you need to do. And then you have to, well, shut down the attack. You have to fight it. You have to counter the attack. You have to isolate the affected systems. You have to mitigate the attack and its potency. And another thing you have to do is to report to the ICO within 72 hours. So that is also mandated by law. You see the trend in all of these things. So, so these things are all mandated by law. You have to report to the office of the ICO in within 72 hours of finding the attack. So if you find the attack today, in 3 days, the ICO office must know. So these are the things that you need to remember so that we are not found wanting by the law. So you have to report and then to the ICO office, and then the ICO office can decide to conduct an investigation or not. And if they conduct an investigation, they can decide if we are at fault or it's not our fault at all. So these are the things that are important to do for for justification of ourselves and for to do right by the people that have entrusted their data to us. So you have to report within 72 hours. And then you have to also talk to your stakeholders, management, the staff, and the members of the public. You have to let them know what is going on. Transparency, and takes me to the discussion about some of the risks and also ethical responsibilities in this new venture that we are going on. There's so many risks that are in what we are trying to do, especially with the integration of artificial intelligence. And let's say we are using artificial intelligence to allocate houses. Let's say we are using artificial intelligence to collate names and sort through names. Whatever it is that we are using artificial intelligence to do, there are risks that come with it. So we have to be able to reduce or eliminate any form of bias by the AI. We have to ensure fair use because artificial intelligence has been at the forefront of accusations of stealing people's intellectual properties or training itself on intellectual properties of other people and not giving credit and stuff like that. So we have to ensure fair use. And fair use is something that has been established by law. That okay, yes, this thing you can say that yes, this thing cannot be helped. It's out there. It's not really intellectual property, and the artificial intelligence can use it. So we have to ensure that only fair use is being done by this artificial intelligence. And as for our ethical responsibility, we have to ensure that the data that we collect for the purpose that we tell the people that we are collecting them for is only used for that purpose that which we tell them. So if we tell the people that we are using this data collected to provide better housing, we should not use the data to then sell to advertisers or do something else or to profile them or to monitor them because we are collecting sensitive data. So we have to make sure that this data that we are collecting is being used for the purpose that we announce to the public that we are using them for. We also have to be transparent. We have to let them know what is going on. So there's a breach, we communicate. There's a development, we communicate. So all these things are our ethical responsibilities to the people that are entrusting their data to us. So in conclusion, the trust of the public is very important, and as I've written in the conclusion of the booklet as well, there's very little that any organization can do, especially when it comes to public sector organizations in the government. There's very little that they can get done if the people do not trust them. So we owe the members of the public the rights to protected data. We owe them the right to do what they give us the data to do. And then we owe them better housing opportunities, better healthcare, better education opportunities by strategically placing them in places that serve them best. And I hope that this explanation has helped to understand better the importance of data protection and how we can go about it in this new project that we're about to embark on. Thank you very much, and I'll be taking questions now.